He scored 21 tries in 63 appearances in a 6-year Leeds Rhino spell before moving to the Giants for 2020. Obviously, shame for young Ashton there as he was looking to get his career back on track.
Toronto is set to get a salary cap dispensation to sign.
We had to talk about this week as well. Go on.
Sign 2 new young players to take their squad number up to 25 players. One of the young players coming in to give some depth is expected to be Canadian former Wolfpack man Quinn Nguati.
Neil McEwen got in touch on the general theme of Toronto's salary cap situation. He said, Toronto are acting like spoiled brats complaining about the salary cap. They've totally fucked in their cap management and now want dispensation for the cost of living in Canada. You've got to be fucking kidding me. They spend 75% of the year in Rochdale, and when in Toronto, players get free travel and accommodation. How can you spend that much on SBW then moan about the salary cap? They've got too many bang average players on big wages. That last point, completely correct. They've got too many bang average players on big wages, and that has got them into this situation. The point before, they can spend however the fuck they want on Sonny Bill Williams because only 150k of it counts on the salary cap. So that's a totally different
nothing. He's former rugby union.
No, because he's got a pedigree in Rugby League. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, either way, not much. But to be fair, if you look at the squad size, you know that basically all they need to decide on their squad declaration is which 2 players drop out. And bearing in mind, one of those players is Gary Wheeler.
Wait a minute. One of them's on a 2-month loan at a championship side, and the other one hasn't got a visa yet. So that's already without even poor Gary Wheeler. It's impossible. They're in an impossible situation, and for the sake of the competition, I do think there should be some consideration of dispensation for the side like this if indeed we wanted them in the structure in the first place. These things should have been ironed out though way before the first week of the season. We had dispensations for London in terms of earnings disparities, and yes, there's an element of they get some stuff provided to them by the club, but the club can't give them free accommodation and it not count on their salary cap, just so people realise. So that isn't a true thing, and I also believe you can't give them free travel and account on the salary cap. I thought the free travel was to visit in sides from the Championship and League One. Not that the players will be playing for their own plane fares, but I thought those sorts of costs had to be counted in the salary cap, because certainly we had an issue at Wigan with some flight for Frank Nuisala.
Different because it wasn't team trip, because you wouldn't have to count the bus to a game, would you?
Right, okay, fair enough.
I think because it wasn't for everybody, it had to count. It was seen as part of his package,
right?
Like his individual. But I think because you were providing the same to, I think that's the same with the accommodation. I think because they provide the same level to everybody.
Okay.
It's the same as if they stayed in the hotel the night before the game. So if they travelled from, Rochdale to London and they stayed in London the night before.
Okay, so actually,
I think it would count the same.
Yeah.
I think.
I appreciate the correction there. I do think there is a challenge. They've had to pay overs up to this point to attract players to play for them in the Championship, but that was all their model to get into the Super League. So that is on them to an extent. But they have difficulty signing players on low wages. So Wigan can sign a bunch of kids on barely anything to pad out the squad, and so can Saints, Leeds, Hull, etc., etc. Whereas if Toronto tried to do that with their own system, they wouldn't be able to do that for young players, say, coming out of the American League or what have you. They wouldn't have the opportunity to do that because those players wouldn't be able to get work permits to play in the sport. Or if they were based out of Toronto, they wouldn't be able to get visas to work in this country. So there's complications there that do have to be considered and should have been considered 4 years ago. I'm a fan of expansion and of the Toronto Wolfpack project in general, and I would have liked some sort of dispensation being organised and arranged way before now. And I think for them to come crying cap in hand at the start of the season, yes, is problematic.
Yeah. Anyway, Warrington have announced a dual registration partnership.
Sky Sports are going to show another point on Toronto. Sky Sports are going to show 10 more Toronto Wolfpack matches in the Super League this season. They're going to show 8 home games from the Lamport Stadium, as well as the games that they're going to be playing on the road at York and Warrington now. So
the London series, which is now happening in Warrington,
which is just so rugby league, but
it is peak.
They are now part of the game. We can't slag them off for anything. They're one of us now. They've done that.
Yeah. How did you prove your rugby league credentials? Well, we left something to the last minute and then moved it 300 miles away.
Whilst whinging about not being given a fair crack by the RFL. You are part of the sport, guys. Welcome on board. Sorry, Warrington.
Yeah, Warrington have announced a dual reg partnership with Championship side Widnes for the 2020 season. The partnership will see the two clubs work together during the season, including performance teams and squad players available for dual reg.
Salford have similarly announced a new reserve grade dual registration partnership with Championship outset Swinton for the 2020 season. So Ian Watson, he's got a 26-man squad, and Swinton have got a 24-man squad. So obviously neither of them will be able to form their own reserve side. So putting things together will work out for both of them. It just seems hilarious that all these rivalries that prevented us ever having mergers at the start of Super League.
As soon as you bring in reserves, you've got to do it again. London Broncos have decided it's all good with the signing of Mitch Allgood, the Australian forward who spent 3 years in Super League with Hull KR and Wakefield between 2015 and 2017, joins the club from St George Illawarra.
Champ and a half Tom said, great signing for London and very pleased for Mitch to have a club after the tough times his family have faced. Batley Bulldogs.
Yep, you go.
Batley Bulldogs have completed the permanent signing of Niall Flynn for the 2020 season. The former Dewsbury and Hunslet utility forward impressed Coach Craig Lingard during a trial period at the club.
Widnes Vikings have completed the permanent signing of 4 players that spent the close season on trial with the club. Lewis Hume, Connor Williams, Jordan Case and Callum Wood have all penned reserve contracts for the 2020 season.
Rochdale Hornets have signed Jack Higginson and Matt Whitehead ahead of the 2020 League One season.
The best name in the entire of League One has re-signed for Workington. Fui Fui Moi Moi has rejoined them for a new season-long deal.
The top tier of the European Championships this would have been the and finally if someone hadn't got involved with their own and finally. The top tier of the European Championships will expand to 6 teams in 2020, including World Cup qualifiers Italy and also Spain. Holders France, Scotland, Ireland and Wales. Hold on, I thought Wales were the holders. Anyway, going to be drawn into 2 groups of 3 alongside the new boys, with the 2 group winners then playing in the European Championship final, while relegation will also be introduced. So Wales will face Spain for the first time in this autumn after the 2 were drawn together in their group. The 34th edition of the competition. What?
Really?
Yeah. We'll see. I'd love to see the history laid out. We'll see 2 3-game groups with the winners of each advancing to the final on the 7th or 8th of November. Reigning champions Wales have been drawn with Spain and Ireland in Group A2, whilst France and Italy and Scotland are in Group A1. The first group stage matches will take place over the weekend of 17th and 18th of October. So quick burst there in the autumn and early winter for the 34th running, who knew, of the European Championships.
There we go. And finally, we have a subject that has been raised. Would you like to bring this one to us?
Well, Alan's internet connection has been a hot news topic in Rugby League this week. So Fatboy Rob has got in touch to say, I know Alan lives in shitty Leeds, but he needs to upgrade from dial-up. We did have a little bit of a breakout of. I have to say, when Alan's connection went dodgy in the season preview show, that was because his computer collapsed on him rather than because his internet connection was problematic. But yeah, thanks to everyone for getting in touch. Wide range of views, especially on
and kids, if you don't know what dial-up is, ask someone else.
Wide range of views, of course, on the homophobic outside back, and we thank you all for your views on that. And now we're going to move on to somewhere we've got another ton of reviews, and that is the Super League match reviews. Super League round 1 then, with an fantastic average attendance of 13,867, and although the double header having the same crowd announced for both games maybe pushes that up a little bit, I would say I reckon there was at least 15 plus in the first game and close to 18 plus in the second game. So it was full for both games, it felt like, whilst when we were in the stadium, and I think it came across similarly on TV, certainly as the first game progressed.
It did look full, yeah.
First game, of course, was quite full too for a Wigan game on a Thursday night. The highest Wigan attendance against Warrington for, I think, 4 games. So since 2016 or something anyway. So Wigan 16, Warrington 10. It was 12-10 to Wigan at half-time. It was 12-10 to Wigan, let us not forget, effectively, when... Well, no, it was 12-8 or something, weren't it, when Warrington were reduced to 12 men. 15,040 was the crowd. Chris Kendall was the referee. A record number of fan views on this, but we'll do the stats first, although we can't do the team stats because for some reason the Super League website does not want to give us any stats for the new rising star Matty Ashton, so we have incomplete team stats to go through, which is really disappointing because I expected him to be one of the individual stats as well because he ran a lot and very fast. Very fast.
And he kept cropping up in places you wouldn't necessarily expect him to crop up in.
He was a big part of the game, weren't he, for someone making a Super League debut. In terms of the winning Wigan side, Joe Burgess had 9 tackle busts, 129 metres and 2 clean breaks. The Ginger Pearl, the testimonial man, my love, Liam Farrell had 114 metres. Morgan Smithies made 43 tackles, 13 marker tackles, no missed tackles, and the alleged gouge of the face. Never heard that before.
Well, it's not. This is unproven, so no charge. Move on.
Yep. Well, after you saw how fresh-faced and clean and lack of scratch at all Blake Austin was for the rest of the game, and indeed all the post-match interviews he decided to do, I would say no case to answer. Jackson Hastings, 1 try assist and 127 metres on his Wigan debut. On his Warrington debut, Anthony Gelling made 10 tackle busts, 126 metres and 4 successful offloads. Toby King, who I thought was actually very good in this game in attack and defence, 126 metres and 5 successful offloads. Joshua Charnley, 104 metres. And Blake Austin, 1 try assist, 139 metres and 2 clean breaks. It's reasonable to assume Matty Ashton would have been in this list ahead of Charnley if we had his numbers.
Yeah. Right. A lot of people got in touch on this one.
Records. Do you want to start with the first review of the first game of the Super League season? Who else but Carsten?
Yes,
the future, you see.
Yeah, exactly. The man with the fastest finger in Switzerland said, "What we learned in the new season: Chris Hill is still dumb. George Burgess may sit down. Bevan French is better at selling dummies than Blake Austin. Lockers gets grubby." And Chris Kendall has the worst game of the season, hopefully. Maybe Specsavers should sponsor him. Average game at best with 2 grubby teams, and that new play the ball rules ignored completely. What is Liam Marshall trying to grow on his face? 2 slugs that have died.
I have no idea, but it is horrific, that beard. that I mean, we're gonna have to use this word because people have used it in the fan reviews, but some people might not like this word, but I refer to that kind of beard as a cunt strap because pretty much everyone I ever met growing up who had that type of a beard was basically a sleazy lech and not a nice person. So I would hope
your 21-year-old boyfriend of your 15-year-old friend.
Yes, that sort of thing, or the guy who sings in a pub band but hasn't really got the voice, but the girls like him because he flirts with them, but really is a dick. But that sort of thing. Anyway, I hope Liam Marshall isn't that type of character, and from what I know of him, he isn't. But yeah, crap beard. Alan Walker says, "No hate speeches here so I could watch it. Shame Super League put on the 2 dirtiest teams as a curtain raiser though. With O'Loughlin, Club Hill, you're guaranteed some shit show. All 3 should have gone." What did Club do?
I didn't notice anything.
No, I mean, O'Loughlin only had 1 eye shot. Anyway, Wigan's youth players and French and Hastings won it in the end. Enjoyed it though, but it won't wash off the stain of the KUNT. Cunt Falau.
At Sam Hardman 2 said, "Is this a new name?"
Yes, Sam's got around us recently. Welcome on board, Sam. Tell us more about yourself, how you got into Rugby League, who you support, etc. Unless that might come obvious.
Tough game with Warrington pushing hard. Wigan a bit lucky, but I think overall they worked hard for the 2 points. Warrington down to 12 should give Warriors a numerical advantage, but Wyatt importantly had 2 very good halves throughout the game, whereas Wigan only had 1 out and out halfback in Hastings for 60 minutes of the game with 2 options on the bench.
Yeah, Wigan didn't capitalise on 12 men as much as you would want them to. Sam's given a good explanation as to part of why that was.
Yeah.